Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jack the Lad podcast. On today's episode, we've got on Justin Scott. Welcome.
What's up, man? How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Obviously, we've been chatting a little bit off air about bits and bobs and what we are sort of looking to chat about. So I came across you on Instagram, as I do a lot of my guests, and it was one of your hunting captions, where you've got your video camera and you're looking into it, and then you lift it up, and you're like, "Bad day to be a deer," and like it's obviously that is such a like it's a short sentence, but yeah, and I chuckled. I think I watched it about 5 or 6 times. I even sent it to my old man and my brother straight away, and I was just like, I'm going to get this guy on because and then I was flicking through your page for a good sort of 15-20 minutes, just hilarious, just really funny. And then I think a few weeks ago you put up your I mean, I've heard it before about the missus told me to tie her up and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So you went a turkey hunting.
Yeah. Well, good, man. That's I'm glad you enjoyed that stuff because that's kind of I want to keep people on there and keep people laughing. And that one with all the guys, I was actually like a special draw hunt we do here in our state. It takes place on a military base. It's a huge military base, and they kind of do that to, thin the deer herd because obviously if they get overpopulated, they overgraze, and then the deer will start actually dying and starving to death, and they're more apt to get disease when they're in that state. So it's like a lot of people were pissed when they saw that and that big line of hunters wearing orange, and they're like, "Oh, that's not hunting." But it was such a huge place. Once I got out in the woods, I didn't see one other guy. But yeah, I thought that would be funny to kind of show all the dudes and be like, it's a bad day to be a deer, because by golly, it was a bad day to be a deer if you were on that military base. But
So
yeah,
with,
so
with that then, if when you're going out and about, do you get tags for that, or is it just shoot on sight?
yeah, for sure. I can't remember exactly how that one was set up, but you kind of just get what's called a military refuge tag. So you buy that and you can use that on military installations, and then national wildlife refuges here. Um, like I said, those are all special draw hunts. You have to put in for those kind of through the military, and then they only draw a certain number of guys. It's not like anyone can just come on the base and go shoot deer that day. I think the tag's like 20 some dollars, and then you can come in there and shoot like 2 does and a buck, or some of them are set up. Some of the wildlife refuges are set up where you come in, you shoot. If you shoot a buck, you can actually earn a second buck tag. But all the different places have their own rules and regulations on how many deer you can take. So obviously, it's not just a big free for all where you go in there and shoot 10 deer. Um, and I don't know what I know that video that you're speaking of in particular taught me to stay the fuck out of the comments. Um,
Mm.
Rogan always talks about that, and I'm like, he's right. I mean, there are some videos that I've posted. When you get up, when you're getting videos that have 2 million, 3 million, 4 million views, the motherfuckers that come out in the comments are insane. It's insane. That particular video, guys were saying like, oh, all these guys' wives are at home getting fucked by some guy. And just the most random shit. The most random shit. But then surprisingly though, there were some comments in that. I think like since that particular video, I've tried to stay out of the comments completely, but I remember some comments from that video. One guy was like, he didn't hunt, but he didn't have mean things to say. And it's like, then hunters started being mean to that guy. And I'm like, I had to intervene and be like, guys, these are the kind of people that us hunters need.
Yeah.
Like if you don't hunt, but you're okay with it, like we need to be as nice as we can to those people because we want them on our side.
Yeah.
Like as time goes on, it seems like more and more laws and regulations get put in place that are just hurting outdoorsmen and fishermen. So anybody that's on our team, we got to like protect them at all costs. So people that don't hunt but are okay with it, I'm a huge advocate for just being nice to those people. Like, don't be mean to them because then they're going to be against you as a hunter. So
Yeah, the one thing that I don't get is when people are not vegan or vegetarian, they eat meat, but they're against hunting. That one I cannot wrap my head around because I'm like, hang about. You go to the shops, buy an animal that was not in its own natural habitat, relatively speaking. I mean, I don't a lot in this country. Obviously, we have factory farming and stuff like that, but I think a lot of, I mean, don't I might not have to go in the comments on this one, but that they are out in the fields for, I think it's like 80% of their life. From what I was learning, because I had a vegan bodybuilder on ages and ages ago. I was friends with him at school, and we were going back and forth about it. And I did some research before, so I had some jargon to throw at him. And I think all cows in this country are set up so they're, I'm sure it's 80% of the time, regardless of what, if that grass-fed, grass-finished thing, I think 80% of their life they're fed grass. It's just towards the end, the last 20% of their life, they're fed grains to fatten them up, obviously, so they get more yield out of the cow. But for the majority, and you got, obviously where I live is quite countryside. There's cows everywhere. There's cows in the fields. It's not like they're all just rammed in these farms. How everyone thinks and how all the vegans say about it. But yeah, I don't understand how someone can consume meat from a dead animal and have an issue with someone killing an animal to eat it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Makes zero sense. I'll never understand it. I'll never understand it because the way I look at it, like I prefer getting most of my meat through hunting because that animal lived like not, I mean, that animal lived the way it was supposed to live, at least for a certain amount of time, a certain amount of time before I got to it. But the the cows even being cooped up in a pasture, I mean, that's still not wild the way that certain animals were supposed to live. So yeah, I don't understand that argument at all. I don't understand. And it's pretty, all the animals in nature are going to die, right? At some point. And most of the time natural causes isn't what gets them. Once a deer, a doe, a buck starts to get old and slow, I mean, how do you think they die? It's not normally from natural causes. It's normally going to be a pack of freaking coyotes where I live.
Mm.
And that's not I mean, what's more ethical? Like, honestly, my arrow going through its heart or a pack of coyotes tearing it piece by piece?
Yeah, over hours.
Right. That seems like it would be a brutal death. I know me personally, I would rather take an arrow through the heart than get tore up by a pack of wild coyotes.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially at an old age.
That might be a clip that you might need to start the comments of as well. Some
Right.
vegans might offer you that arrow.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, and the vegans they choose freaking animals over people. They're like, death to you, let the animals live. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm always going to be on team people. I think we are animals and we were meant to consume animal flesh. So I'm going to continue to do what I do. If they ever were to outlaw hunting, I know there's a state here in the United States. I can't remember which state it is. It's somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I want to say Washington or Oregon. They were trying to put it on the ballots to vote again and just ban hunting altogether.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I don't know that it ever made. I heard about this. It was a year or two ago. I don't know if it ever made it onto even a ballot, but they had talked about wanting to get a vote just against hunting altogether, making it completely illegal in one of those states, which is insane to me.
Yeah. What? Talking of your hunting and stuff. What? How did you get into it?
So I was just kind of born into it, honestly. My dad hunted as long as I can remember. Um, One of his friends got him into it. So when I was a kid, probably I think I was in second grade, maybe. So I live in Indiana. In like second grade, we moved to a different state. We moved south to Alabama. Lived there for many years. My dad wasn't with us. He stayed in Indiana. Obviously they split up. I ended up meeting a bunch of boys down in Alabama that loved hunting and fishing. So while I was down there, I started hunting small game, squirrels, rabbits, birds, and then doing a lot of fishing. Um, a lot of the hunting there was illegal, running around the woods with a pellet gun as a young boy. I was just shooting at everything, shooting every little tiny bird and squirrel I saw. So and then we moved back eventually to Indiana and came back, and my dad was already big time into deer hunting, and naturally I just started hunting with him. I think I shot my first deer when I want to say 13 or 14 with a compound bow with my dad. So I got that story is on one of my podcasts. Um, it's I think the only deer hunting podcast I've done so far. I just tell the story of my first deer that I shot.
What's your podcast called?
The Largemouth Buck Podcast.
The Largemouth Buck Podcast. Okay, my 3 listeners might listen to that as well then.
Hey, I'll take any listeners. I don't have a bunch of listeners yet myself, but we're working on that. So
Yeah.
you got to just plug away. That's one thing I've seen with the whole. I think I started my Instagram page, man, like 2020 maybe. And at first I was just doing what everybody does on Instagram, and that's post pictures and put a caption and try to sound witty and fucking smart in the caption about, oh, this is, you post a picture of meat and then you go on a whole spiel of how you should hunt wild game and whatever. And then I eventually started just kind of doing my own thing, and just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And eventually it started gaining some traction, surprisingly. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have any listeners on my podcast either, but I'm going to keep doing it because I enjoy it. Probably same thing with you. Like, enjoy just doing it and telling my story. And I don't know how to have guests yet, so I got to figure that out because I'd like to have some guests. I want to kind of turn it into just stories, right? People's turkey and deer hunting and fishing stories, get all kinds of cool stories, because the more time you spend in the great outdoors, like I know one time we didn't get to do a podcast. Something happened. I think you said I don't remember what it was, but there was something, you were on a hike with your family.
Yeah, I got caught up. Yeah, well, I was out in Peak District, and we were out for a lot longer than I thought. Yeah, 25 miles we walked. Yeah.
Oh, holy shit!
Yeah.
You took your whole family on that?
No. It's just me, my dad, and my stepbrother. No.
Oh, I was like, holy shit, dude! You got a fit ass family.
I did take my 6-year-old. I think he'd either just turned 6 or he was about to turn 6. So he might have been 5 last year. We walked up Snowdon, which is I think it's the second biggest mountain in the UK. It's a big old. It's a good.
Oh, nice.
It's a fair old go. We did about 16 kilometers, I think, that day total. I don't know what the peak is. It's pretty high though for a kid. And we went up one of the. Is it going to come up Snowdon? Yeah. So it is 1,085 meters above sea level, and it's the highest mountain in Wales. And I took my 5-year-old went up that. Yeah. He walked all the way up. And then as we started to come down, I was getting him on my shoulders and that, yeah. But he absolutely smashed it. That night, no leg pain, no nothing. All day, like he literally just breezed through it. Absolutely no issues at all.
Wow.
And I put that on my
impressive.
Instagram. Yeah. And we didn't choose a very easy route. I mean, there were some bits where they were. I mean, some of the rock faces we were having to jump up were sort of 3-4 foot high, so he couldn't even reach them. So we were having to lift him up there. But for the whole way up, he didn't walk. He only walked himself. He was never like, oh, Dad, can I get on your shoulders, or anything like that. He was just bossed it. We got to the top, had our photo at the top. Then we were walking down, and even on the walk down, like I'd carry him. I said to him, I'm not going to carry you all the way down. I said, I'll carry you for say 100, 200 meters. Then you walk for another 200 meters or so, and then I'll pick you up again and do that. And obviously I was making sure that he was walking a lot longer than I was carrying him for. But then, yeah, even I've got videos and stuff like that, and I put some up on Instagram of him on the way down, like running, chasing after my dad and stuff. Like
Yeah.
he'd just done it, like he'd been carried all the way up, and he was just running down. But yeah, no, he absolutely smashed it. I think we were out there for about 5 hours. But yeah,
Nice. That's
absolutely no
impressive.
issues.
That's
Yeah, he's a
impressive.
beast.
Is there a lot of wildlife there?
Around me, quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I live out in the sticks here. I mean, I live in the East Midlands, and I mean, where my old man lives, it's even more sort of rural. He lives in a tiny little village with only sort of, I think it's only got about 100 houses in it. So yeah, he's right out, and he does a lot of hunting. And my granddad was massive into hunting and fishing. I mean, every weekend he tried to bestow fishing and stuff on me, but all I wanted to do was play football, and sitting around fishing and playing football are two extremes for me, really. One of them, you've got to sit around doing nothing, and the other, you're running about, So yeah, so it didn't really catch with me at all, that side of it. But then obviously once I was in the military and stuff like that, I've done, a bit of hunting and stuff like that. But yeah, my old man, I think he still does it now. He's got a lot of mates that do it. Obviously, we still get pheasants and ducks and stuff like that. And he's got, a couple of mates that, like, whenever you want anything, just give me a shout and I can chuck you a brace. So yeah, we eat a lot of wild birds.
That's awesome. Well, just the reason I was asking is because that's what I was talking about a minute ago. Is I want to have the more time you spend outdoors, and especially hunting and fishing, you start to realize, man, there's a lot of good times to be had out there. And some of my craziest stories have came from being in the great outdoors. Some of the coolest and most memorable things that have ever happened to me have happened in the great outdoors. So that's what I want my podcast to turn into, is just hearing people's crazy stories about the outdoors while they were hunting or fishing or hiking or whatever it may be, animal encounters and whatnot. I've had some insane encounters out and about, and I plan to tell all my stories on the podcast. And then once mine are kind of all told, I want to start having guests on and hear about their crazy stories. Like, for instance, one time we were doing what's called spotlighting. I don't know if you know what that is, but you take like a big essentially high beam light and you drive around at night to all the farm fields, because in the fall here is the main time to hunt deer. So during the fall you drive around, all of the corn fields, all of the soybean fields have been harvested. If they haven't been harvested, you can really see the deer good in a soybean field, and you go out with your high powered light and you go, some people call it shining, some people call it, I've always called it spotlighting. So you go spotlighting and you try and see, the deer in the fields, and you'll see, that's a lot of times when you can locate a big buck in the area. You hit him with that spotlight at night, because a lot of the big mature bucks are smart and they move the most in the nighttime. So we're out spotlighting once. I'm with a friend, my best friend that I've hunted with since we were little kids, and we're with his dad. It's funny, him and I are best buds, been hunting our whole lives together, and then our dads were also best friends growing up, and they hunted together a lot. Anyways, we're out spotlighting. I'm in the back seat of this. It's a brand new Dodge Durango SUV, sport utility, and my buddy's in the front seat. His dad's in the driver's seat. I'm in the back seat with the spotlight, and we come up on this bean field, and I shine on this doe that is, she's only like 20 yards from the SUV, and as soon as that light hits her eyes, she just starts charging at me, charging at the SUV, running straight at it. I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." Shining this light, she fucking plows the door. Plows the back passenger side door, collapses right outside the SUV. I'm shining the light on her. I'm freaking out. They're freaking out. She jumps up, runs around the back of the SUV, and runs into the woods on the other side of the road. Puts a giant dent in this brand new fucking SUV in the side of the door. That's something, if those guys wouldn't have been with me, who believes that story?
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. And shit like that happens more frequently than you could imagine. Like when you're out doing those kind of things, the crazy shit you see. Hey, I mean, you see a lot of crazy shit, and so I want to be able to tell those kind of stories. I know when I listen to an outdoor podcast, um, I just want to hear crazy stories, hunting and fishing stories. I don't really care to hear guys talk about trying to like tell you how you should hunt or how they hunt or like I've been at it for a long time. I know how to hunt, I know how to fish. I like to hear the stories. You know what I mean? And you don't I have not found an outdoor podcast like that where it's just stories, you know? You might find some podcasts that um maybe they tell a story on their outdoor podcast, but it's mostly talking about gear, they're talking about maybe they tell their story from their previous year, but I have yet to find one where it's just other people telling their stories, you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily have to have popular hunters and anglers. I want to get everyday guys that do other things for a living other than hunt and fish, you know?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I've with my podcast when I first started it, and I mean the tag of the podcast is "Ordinary People, Extraordinary Stories."
I love it.
So it is just that I wanted to get 9 to 5 people that normal jobs, normal working jobs, but they've done something or something's happened to them in their life that is out of the norm. I mean, like one of the first. I mean, my first podcast, as I said earlier, was my granddad. My second podcast was my brother's best mate from school, and he hit me up actually as soon as I started. He said, "I'll come on the podcast." And I said, "Oh, what are you up to this day? What are you up to these days, Twiggy?" And he was like, "Oh, I just won the British men's kite surf championship. I've just been crowned the pro men's kite surf champion." And I was like, 100% you can come on. I said, I don't know anyone else that even does kite surfing. And you're
Yeah.
you're the man of Britain.
Yeah.
I was like, 100% you can come on. So yeah, he came on. And then I had, then my step-brother-in-law came on, like my stepsister's fella. And he'd done Marathon des Sables. I don't know if you know what that is. So that's a 250-kilometer race across the Sahara Desert.
Oh, wow.
Over 5 days.
Wow.
So again, I was like, I don't know anyone that's done that, so you can come on. And then my stepbrother was like, oh, I was a dog sled rider in Canada for 2 years. I was like, I don't know any dog sled riders. Come on, let's have a chat.
Yeah.
And then obviously we got into it, and he also represented England at Aussie Rules Football. And yeah, like some of my lot were like, I didn't know Mark did that, and I was like, nor did I until we spoke about it on the podcast. And there was so much that we've chatted about on it because you don't talk to people like this. You don't just sit down and have a back and forth conversation about someone's life in day-to-day society.
Right.
You say hello to your mate, and you like even some of my mates now. Like I had one of my mates on that I was really, really close with when I was in the military at my first unit, MJ. Massive pisshead. We used to go out on the piss all the time. But when you're going out drinking, you're not talking about, when I was 14, I did whatever with this girl and and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
You're just going out and having a good time.
Right.
And then in that, that was a 2-hour podcast. And yeah, and he ended up telling me that like when the whole time I knew him, he had a real drinking problem. And because we were 21, so it's just, 21, we're in the military and we're going out. That's what we do.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, yeah, and then he was saying that he was struggling with a drinking problem from the age of 14. And all that came out, and I was just like, wow, like I've found out more about you in the last 2 hours than I did in the last 10 years that I've known you.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think more people should do it. I think it's so good when it comes to communicating. And yeah, when you're doing the podcast, you have an intention, right? You're not just like you said, you're not just going out drinking, shooting the shit and kind of talking about useless stuff. You're actually there's some intent behind it, and you want to tell your story and open up. And it's funny, all the people you mentioned have done like badass shit, and I just make stupid fucking videos.
Well, no,
that's why it's weird for me, because I'm like, I don't know that my podcast will ever take off, because my kind of forte, like, I'm not being funny on the podcast. That's kind of not what it's meant to do. My podcast is more serious, but that's not why people have been kind of giving me attention and giving me love. I've kind of been taken off because I'm so like all the funny videos. You know what I mean? This is something totally
Mm.
different for me. Something like this. Like, I don't know that I'm that funny in even real life, but the shit that I think of and the skits that I think of, I feel like that's what I feel like I was born to be an entertainer. Like, I can write songs, I can come up with short skits. Um, so I don't know that my podcast will ever go anywhere, but it's still fun. It's still fun.
Yeah, as long as you're having fun doing it, I would say continue to do it. I mean, when I first started this, I mean my old man has been my biggest supporter, biggest fan. Tells everyone about it. Anyone he meets, he does construction now. He works with one of his mates, and he'll be going, like domestic, like houses, doing renovations, builds, and tiling, and everything. My old man can whatever you can do with your hands, he can do it. He can fix cars, everything. He's a proper man's man. When I
Yeah.
was growing up, I didn't have to do nothing around the house. So I sort of had to learn bits and bobs, as I've gone around. But yeah, growing up, he'd be tiling the bathroom. He'd be fixing the car. He'd be fixing his bike. He'd be, all the like man stuff
Yeah.
that seems to get lost on this generation because everyone just, it's throwaway generation and nothing gets fixed anymore. And he was, where was I going with that?
I I don't know, man.
I went off on a bit of about my podcast, about the podcast.
Yeah,
So when I first started it, he was telling everyone about it, and he's always like, "Oh, I've been speaking to a lad that I'm trying to get him on, and he'll tell me about him a little bit and all the rest of it." And I said to him when I first started, I said, "Dad, honestly, I want to do this for me.
Yeah.
I said I want to talk to people. I want to further my knowledge about other humans and their starting points in life and all the rest of it." I said even if I don't even check my buzz, I don't check my views or any of that now. I just put it on, a bit like Joe Rogan. I just post and ghost.
Yeah.
I go on, I put it all on, put them all on, and then think. Sometimes it will tell me, like I'll get my emails through and stuff like that, and it'll be like, oh, that episode, 500 views, or that episode did 300 views, whatever it is. But the majority of the time, I'm in sort of the 50 to 100.
Yeah.
Which again, for me, if we were doing the podcast now and I had 50 people sat in front of me now watching me, I'd be like, this is crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
But and then you speak to people and they're like, oh, you only get 50 views. And I'm like, how many do you get? Oh, that's right. You don't do a podcast. So
Oh, dude, the only
Keep
people that
keep your lips
most
together.
of the people that judge don't fucking make content at all. It grinds my gears bad. Cuz I mean, yeah, I'm the same on the podcast. I'm not even getting nearly as many as you, and I've got kind of like already what you would hope would be like a built-in base from all my comedy shit. Like, but that doesn't even translate at all. Like the podcast is a
Doesn't,
whole
no.
different thing. It's its own whole, you know, it's different thing by itself. So even me, like starting to build a good following from my stupid funny videos, even having that built-in, I guess, built-in base, if you will, it still doesn't even fucking matter. Like it's just, yeah, you just got to do it because you like it. And I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily like doing my own podcast because I don't know if people give a shit about hearing who I am, like as a person. I think they just want to see the stupid, funny fucking videos. So sometimes I wonder, like, am I wasting my time at all? Because I don't know. But then, yeah, you come back to it doesn't matter because I don't know. I don't know even what I'm trying to say. I want to be able to tell my hunting stories because I do enjoy doing that, and I have got some personal messages from just a couple people saying, "Hey, listen to that podcast, really enjoyed it," and that's enough to be like, well, if one person likes it, that's all that matters, right? If one person
Yeah.
likes it, if they enjoyed it and they didn't listen till the end and go, "Well, that was a waste of my time," if they enjoyed it, well then I'm happy. Like one person heard my story about killing my first turkey and they enjoyed that. I think that's pretty fucking cool because maybe that one person will be like, hey, I want to get into hunting. Hey, I want to get into fishing. Because that, in the big scheme of things, that is kind of my goal. That's why I'm doing the funny videos. That's my goal in life with everything I'm doing with largemouth buck. I want to share my passion for the great outdoors, and then I want to like recruit other and turn people into hunters and anglers. Like same thing with your podcast. If one person hears the one about the guy that's a kite surfer and goes, I want to try that. If
Mm.
you can inspire one fucking person and just in your whole life, man, it's like, why not? And then I think there's nothing more inspirational than telling your story. And then like there's no, I think there's nothing more inspirational than maybe people seeing my comedy videos and it lets them know that there's more to outdoors than just killing an animal. You know what I mean? There's way more. And that's I don't know. I just hope that people like with what I'm doing, I hope they don't get confused and think that I think that there's anything about hunting that the actual animal's death that's funny, because I try to make sure in my videos that I'm never like mocking an animal's death, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Like all the
Yeah,
funny
definitely.
things that happen take place like during the lead up to harvesting the animal or after you harvest the animal. There's all kinds of funny things that happen when you're hunting and fishing, but like the actual I feel like that's how people with PETA would try and twist it or whatever and be like, oh, he's mocking the death. Oh, if he's doing funny hunting videos, he must not take death seriously, or he's mocking that animal. And that's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm just trying to show people that there is a lighter side. Hunting is not just about like blood and death and gore. It's about putting food on the table, but in the process of that, there are a lot of good, funny, humorous things that happen.
Yeah, definitely. So as you can see, the timer is steadily creeping in now. So do you want to give everyone your socials and that just quickly, and then I'll log us off, and then we'll see everyone again next week.
Oh, we're already at 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Man, that went so quick. I feel like we didn't even say anything. Yeah, man. The socials are Instagram is at largemouth.buck. And then I think everything else is largemouth buck. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, uh, uh, YouTube, really trying to grow the YouTube channel. So trying to grow that to where I can eventually monetize it. That's honestly the goal. I'd love to be able to make uh, make hunting, fishing content for a living. That's hopefully what I can do someday. So I want to be able to that's what I love the most in life. And so I'm hoping that I can grow everything and eventually make a living doing it. So
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Justin. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to the start of this story. Tune in next week, everybody, and we'll see you
yeah,
then.
man, thanks for having me.